When was the last time a child murdered someone, raped someone, kidnapped someone? It's an absurdity. If your children were really so violent, you would have them institutionalized.
Hey, Tony, how you doing? You were here last time, weren't you?
Yes, I was.
How you doing?
I'm
Oh,
just
you're the guy
peachy.
with the great radio voice.
Oh, I thank you.
Who was an atheist.
That's correct.
Are you still an atheist?
I am, yes.
Tony, come on, you had a whole year,
well,
Tony.
See, I'm coming back.
A whole year,
Maybe
okay.
you can help me out.
All
We'll
right.
see.
Okay, go ahead, Tony.
So I wanted to begin, but you mentioned Christopher Hitchens.
Yes.
I know you debated him.
Yes.
And as you know, he had a very sharp wit in his
did.
life. And I thought, in his spirit, I would note, you said that much of his brilliance was owed to his accent. But I thought it was worth pointing out that he sold more books in his lifetime. So there's that.
Well, yeah, and actually, there's a lot of truth in his books.
Well, I agree. Well,
Yeah.
I don't actually like Christopher Hitchens, but I thought he was right about one thing, and this happened to be that particular issue.
Remember, Tony, why do people buy books? I don't really know, but if they like somebody, and look, I liked Hitchens. He was very likable. Right. I have his book.
I didn't mean. I was
So-
just telling a joke. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay,
I wasn't putting you down or anything.
Oh, all right.
I'm
Well,
sure
no, I'm just trying to figure out why. Oh, anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I actually began with that because I've had an epiphany recently, understanding what it means when people talk about God. I recently, and I don't mean to make anyone sad, but a friend of mine 2 weeks ago had killed himself, and he was a Christian. He was leading Bible studies a lot. There's never really been any explanation as to why he would have done that. At the same time, I had another friend who was an atheist who was seriously considering suicide. And it occurred to me in between this time that a lot of what people talk about when they are discussing God, and you did a good job, I think, illustrating this point for me when you talked about morality, is they're talking about hope and something to live for, or something, you look at the universe and you think, wow, this is truly amazing. And people have this feeling that they need to express somehow. And I think that is what religion ultimately is. You said that many of your doubts often tend to be emotional, and that it varies according to the day.
I'm sorry to hear about your friend. We have a long line behind
Okay,
you, so you
I'm
gotta
sorry.
kinda get
So
to
I'll
a
make my
question.
point.
Get to a
Yeah,
question.
I'll make my point.
Okay.
Do you believe that it is possible to live a meaningful life without a belief in a God?
Sure, but it'd be subjective meaning, wouldn't be objective meaning.
What do you mean?
Well, objective meaning is grounded in the nature of God, His purposes. If we all just die and become worm food, there's no ultimate meaning.
Well, that doesn't diminish the meaning of my life at all. It's true that as you said earlier, we might be wet machines, but my life isn't measured according to that at all. I can live a perfectly meaningful life as this meat robot, even though I don't have that perspective on it. So,
Right, for you personally. But if
Right.
Hitler comes along and he says, Tony, I'd really like to kill you because
Right.
it would make me happy, is he wrong?
he might feel that way, but it doesn't matter. I mean, my life is,
In
the
other
meaning
words,
of your life
Yeah,
is...
I know. In other words, though, is his meaning to kill you, if that's how he gets his meaning, is he wrong?
It's not a question, it's not a factual question.
Well, it is.
He
because,
may derive meaning in that,
right,
but...
it's just subjective meaning, in other words. It's his own subjective meaning against your own subjective meaning. What I'm saying is, only if God exists is there objective meaning. Otherwise, life ultimately is absurd. And this is what the great existentialists have said. Camus and Sartre and others and Nietzsche. So, yes, you can have your own subjective meaning, just like Hitler can have his own subjective meaning to kill you, and you can have your own subjective meaning to do what you want to do, but it's not objective.
I believe life has objective meaning. We all have our own nature, and we live according to that. We all work for our own self-satisfaction, but the things, and this is why I mentioned both of my friends, was that they both had similar problems. They both felt hopeless, but they responded in different ways, regardless of their religion. And that's what I think is what meaning is. It's that ability to look into yourself and find what it is that you take satisfaction from.
And you are a subject. You're right. You can
Right.
do that subjectively, but there's no measuring standard outside of you unless God exists. That's what I'm saying.
Right. It is entirely, your meaning is entirely dependent on you. And that's why I think that religion, for many people, I think they have the mistaken idea that that's the only way they can get meaning in life. And I bring this up.
That's the only way they can get objective meaning. They can have.
There is no such thing as objective meaning. All values are subjective.
Is that an objective statement you just made?
No, it's not.
Okay, well,
because to your perspective, it may very well be objective, but it's still ultimately dependent on you. When we talk about values, we're talking about the feelings of an individual. Okay, so it's objectively true that you have subjective values, but they're ultimately dependent on the individual.
So basically what you're saying, Tony, is the pedophile Tom who abused that little girl, Jessica, that wasn't objectively wrong.
No, it was objectively wrong because he was acting contrary to his nature as a human being.
Oh, no, he wasn't.
Oh,
he was
absolutely
acting right in accord with his compass. His subjective compass told him that's what he wanted. Why is he wrong if there's no standard beyond him?
There is an objective morality, but it's no one in the normal course of their lives does something like that. It is in man's nature to be loving and peaceful toward other people. There are exceptions. I know the audience doesn't believe that, but let me demonstrate that. No one in this room has managed to hit each other, in spite that there are many people who are in disagreement. No one's swearing at each other. We all have peaceful nature.
Okay.
That man was acting contrary to his nature as a human being, and that is why it is immoral.
Tony, do you have children?
No, I don't.
Okay, so you haven't been through the terrible twos. Okay?
No, I don't.
Okay, so you don't have to tell a child to say mine. You have to teach them to share because our nature is bent toward evil.
No, it's not.
All right, well.
It's not. No child goes out and does what the wicked things that adults do, right? No child. When was the last time a child murdered someone, raped someone, kidnapped someone? It's an absurdity. If your children were really so violent, you would have them institutionalized. And there are some children like that, but the majority of people fundamentally do right. Okay, and do wrong is the exception to the rule.
But Tony, and this is the last thing because we got a line behind.
I understand.
Okay. On one hand, a minute ago you were saying there are no objective values, and now you're telling me that children do right. Now, which is it?
They don't always do right.
What do you mean by right?
As in acting according to their nature.
And whose nature? Mother Teresa's nature or Hitler's nature?
No, our nature as human beings is reasoning animals, right? We all have our own. We all understand why we don't do that to each other because we wouldn't have it done unto us.
Do what to one another? What value are you talking about?
The value of not doing violence onto each other.
Why is that wrong if there's no God?
It's wrong because we would never have it done to us.
So what? Why does Hitler care if he kills you?
He doesn't. But that's still
why
wrong.
Is he wrong? Or is he wrong?
Would Hitler approve of my killing him?
What does that matter?
If he's enforcing a morality on me that he is not giving to himself, then he's suggesting that he's something other than human, right?
Okay.
So he's falling into contradiction because he may steal from me, but he would never tolerate my stealing from him. All morality must be universal, as I believe the point of your presentation was.
Well, it is universal, but it's grounded in the nature of God. But you a minute
not
ago
God,
told me
in
it's
man.
Subjective.
It's not, because if you look in God.
Okay, all right, Tony, please. Okay, why don't we do this? I'm happy to talk to you all night if you want to talk about it, but not in front of everybody right now.
I apologize to the people behind me.
Okay, so let's hang around and you and I can talk more.
Sure.
But last thing, Tony. Last thing. I don't remember the answer to this question last year.
Yes.
You would become a Christian.
Yes.
Did I give you a book last year?
No.
If I had a book, I'd give it. You give me your address, I'll send it to you.
Oh, thanks.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, thanks. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And thank you, Tony.